I believe that frugality is the secret to economic freedom. I have used frugality to achieve a certain level of financial freedom in my own life in a relatively short amount of time, and I think that you can as well. Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to On Cash Flow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. So major reason number one why frugality is so essential is that you can live practically anywhere and be frugal. You can live in the most expensive city in the United States and you can live in the least expensive city. And you can find ways to be frugal and live a relatively frugal life in both of those cities. For example, according to my source, Manhattan, New York is the most expensive city in the United States, whereas the least expensive city, according to that same source, is Decatur, Illinois. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now, as you can probably guess, living a frugal lifestyle in either of those two cities is going to look a lot different. For example, in an expensive city such as Manhattan, in order to live a frugal life, you might have to live with a roommate, right? You might have to rent one place with multiple people. Whereas when it comes to transportation, you might have to own a car in a low cost of living city because they might not have good infrastructure for walking. Whereas in an expensive city such as Manhattan, you can get away easily without owning a car at all. Additionally, when it comes to frugality, in a big city, you might have lots of events that are free, that are open to the public. And so your entertainment options may be very low cost. Whereas in a low cost of living city, you might not have so many entertainment options that are free and open to the public. And so your entertainment costs might be higher there. Another example that people don't think of, and this is not specific to the cities that I mentioned before, is that an expensive city might have really good weather, and therefore you have a low amount of utility costs there in somewhere that has really good weather. And it's very expensive because it has very good weather and a lot of people want to live there, such as many of the beach cities in California. A lot of them have, great weather year round, and a lot of those houses do not have air conditioning, for example, of which if you live in a lower cost of living area, such as in the South, you know that you have to have air conditioning year round, and that can be a very high cost expense that would otherwise you wouldn't have if you lived in that, good weather area. And one more really important distinction of being frugal in different areas is that in a very high cost of living area such as Manhattan, you would probably most likely rent, and it would be a lot cheaper than buying in that kind of area. In many high cost of living areas in the United States, it can be cheaper to rent a place, even if it's for a significant amount of time, versus buy a place. Whereas the opposite is true in many of the low cost of living areas in the United States. It is usually much more financially advantageous to buy in a low cost of living area than it is to rent, especially over the long term. Now, it's important to mention that while I am very frugal compared to most people, there are some categories where I'm not frugal at all. And that is for another video that I'll remind you about at the end of this video. Moving on to major reason number two why frugality is so important. And that is that frugality shields you from inflation. No, it doesn't completely protect you from inflation, right? Inflation is always going to be there, and it's always going to affect all of us in some way. However, I think it minimizes the effects of inflation, especially the negative effects of inflation, if you are frugal and you live a frugal lifestyle. For example, if you are used to buying used items are way less inflated than new items, and used items experience much less inflation than new items do. Another way that being frugal protects you from inflation is that you are always going to buy stuff that is on sale. If you're always looking for stuff that is on sale versus, the full price, and I really do actually mean on sale, like it actually is a discounted price, not one of those fake sales that all the malls have in their stores that say sale 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. No, I mean that if you really know something is usually costing this amount and it goes on sale for this amount, and being a frugal person, that's only when you're going to buy that product, then you can minimize the effects of inflation in that way as well. For example, you might mentally learn to track the base cost of many of the things that you buy, or you can make a little spreadsheet like I did, whereas you know that this item, usually it is $10 and that's like its store price, but occasionally it goes on sale for $7. Maybe you can stock up on that item, and so you bought it at a 30% discount because it was on sale. Another way that being frugal protects you from inflation is if you are a DIYer. If you do things yourself, then it's going to protect you from the inflation of labor costs. Labor costs when it comes to hiring contractors and the trades. For example, when it comes to your own home maintenance and your home renovations, if you do most of those things yourself, you're going to save a lot on the inflated costs of labor, because labor is a significant portion of many of these projects. And if you do these things yourself, you're only really monetarily paying for the materials, which also are going to have a little bit of inflation. But when you combine that with the inflated cost of labor, then you're saving a lot over time and you're feeling less of the effects of inflation overall. And one more way that frugality helps protect you from inflation is that you can adjust adjust your habits based on something that might be temporarily inflated. For example, when we saw like massive increases in fuel costs, like gas costs in 2021 and 2022 here in the United States, if you were a frugal person, most likely what you did was you adjusted your habits accordingly. You slightly tried to reduce the amount of driving that you did because gas costs were temporarily inflated. So maybe instead of taking that road trip that year, you did something that was closer to home and you adjusted your activities, whereas instead of driving 1 hour to go do something, you drove only 30 minutes. So you can adjust your habits and your spending patterns based on something that might be temporarily inflated. Another good example of this is like seasonal items, right? So like many like fruits and vegetables are grown in season. And so you can adjust your habits and only buying those when they're in season because they're going to be a lot less in cost versus when those items are out of season, they're going to be a lot more expensive. Now, while this video is being frugal, one thing you should not be frugal about is hitting the like button on this video. If you're enjoying it so far, please make sure you hit that like button. It really does help me out and I really do appreciate it. All right, major reason number 3 on why frugality is so important is that it protects you from minor emergencies. And again, this kind of ties back into the DIY space. I really honestly cannot overemphasize the power of DIY and how much power it gives back to you, especially when it comes to, that frugal aspect of it, the monetary aspect. And that's because there can be many like minor emergencies that could cost a lot of money if you didn't know what you were doing, such as with your vehicle or with your home. There could be many things that can, quickly be an emergency in your mind, like a minor emergency. But if you just take the moment to learn and how to do a thing yourself to fix that emergency, to fix that problem, and then it can save you a lot of money, then that is definitely something that frugal people do. They learn and then they do these things themselves. They solve problems themselves. And we truly do live in an amazing time because you can learn to do practically anything for nearly free as long as you have an internet connection. Maybe you're paying for that monthly internet bill, or you can go to the library and utilize that. But you can literally learn how to solve almost any problem pretty much for free online nowadays. And so we're living in an amazing time to be frugal. I've been pleasantly surprised in my own life how many things I have been able to learn to do and how relatively easy they were and how they've saved me literally thousands of dollars. For example, all of the preventative maintenance around my home. I've done all of that myself and I've learned how to do it. I've even done things like minor plumbing work and electrical work. And I was surprised to learn how it's not very difficult to do those things. And when it comes to my vehicle, I've replaced brake pads on my vehicle. I've replaced spark plugs. And of course, many other minor maintenance things on the vehicle as well. Cumulatively, these things have literally saved me thousands of dollars just by being frugal, just by wanting to learn how to do these things and doing them myself. And now that you know why I think that frugality is so important for achieving financial freedom, I want to know from you in the comments below. Do you consider yourself to be a frugal person? If so, what are some success stories where frugality has paid off for you? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say. And now I want to share another video with you that is a little bit different here because there are some things in my life where I am not frugal. And so I have another video for you where I show some categories where I am not frugal. If you're interested in that video, it's going to pop up right on the screen right after I get off the screen. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com and I hope to see you next time.